Hey everybody, it's Brian. Thank you for joining me again on There You Go. And I hope everybody had a nice holiday. Let's get back to doing some really fun adventures. As you can see, I've still got the Christmas ornaments up on the mantle, all decorated nice. I just can't let it go. What is the right time to take down the Christmas ornaments? Any suggestions? Throw them in the comments below. But you know, like I said, it says on my phone here that it's 3 degrees, but it feels like -9, and that's what I go by. So it's cold out there. I'm gonna have to bundle up, and but I'm not gonna let it stop me. We are gonna go out and we are gonna do this vlog, and it's gonna be a great vlog, and I hope that you like it. I know I can do this. I know I can do it. I know I can do it.
I can't do this. It's so cold.
Okay, so maybe we could do a vlog inside today? Now, I'm a little bit more disheveled now, but at least I'm warm and I won't lose any body parts to frostbite. Now, I'm a firm believer in whatever you need is going to be put in your path, and that can be used to propel you further down the road. I've always felt this, and things always seem to come to me when I need them. So let's see if we can turn something into a vlog here. For instance, 2 days ago, I watched the new Amazon movie called Being the Ricardos. Maybe some of you have seen it already, maybe some of you haven't. I won't give away too much, but it's about Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz. I'll watch any biopic that you put in front of me just because I love biopics and I love stuff specifically related to old Hollywood. It's just a time period that I love, the 40s, the 50s, 60s, 70s, all of that stuff. So I was watching this show. It stars Nicole Kidman and Javier Bardem. They're both good actors. I like them both. I wasn't particularly thrilled. I know they're getting great reviews and everything, but I wasn't particularly thrilled because I don't think Javier Bardem actually looks like Desi Arnaz, and I didn't think that Nicole Kidman looked like Lucy. But that's beside the point. I'm not telling you don't watch it. Watch it. You'll enjoy it, I'm sure. It's just I thought that the casting could have been a little bit better. But it basically takes place around the show I Love Lucy. And I was thinking, what in my apartment could I possibly tie in with that in some way? And I knew there was something that I could tie in with that. And as many of you know, about a year ago, I lost my mom. And so I was going through her apartment. And my mom had told me stories about something that happened back in 1950. And I had always had that in the back of my mind. And once my mom transitioned to a higher level of existence, as I was going through all of her boxes and everything, I found something. And I'm going to show you that in a little bit. But for right now, let me just give you a little bit of background how all of this ties together. Okay, so the year is 1949, and Lucille Ball, who had been, quote unquote, they called her the queen of the B movies. She never quite made it to the top tier, but she was making a very good living. She was very well known and very successful being a B movie actress. And then she hit the age of 40 and they let her go. They got rid of her contract and told her that she was too old. So they told her, go work in radio maybe. She took that as a great insult, but she went and worked in radio, and she did a show called My Favorite Husband. And she's doing the show and it takes off. It's very successful. It's about a husband and a wife and the daily ups and downs of their relationship. So the show becomes so successful that CBS television comes and says, we want to take the radio show and make it into a TV show. And she says that we'll do that, but only if my husband, Desi Arnaz, who she had been married to for 10 years, can play her husband on the show. They said, no, we can't do that. And she's like, why? And they say, well, because you're like the all-American girl and he's from Cuba. So it would be like a mixed marriage, and that would be very cutting edge to do back then. And a lot of the sponsors were afraid that people just wouldn't watch it. They said they're not going to watch it. People will turn off the TV sets. So Desi Arnaz, who came from Cuba, and he was a band leader, and he was doing rumba music and Cuban stuff, he said, well, I tell you what, we will go out. I've got some shows booked if I remember correctly, I believe it's 4 shows. One was in Milwaukee, one's in LA, one's New York, and one was in Chicago. The show in Chicago was booked for June the 2nd, 1950 at the Chicago Theater. Now, the only problem for Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz in Hollywood is that they've never worked together. They've never done anything. As a matter of fact, Lucy hasn't really done any kind of major slapstick comedy, anything physical, and Desi hasn't done any comedy at all. He's only done music. So what do? They hire a friend of Desi Arnaz's from back in Cuba named Pepito Perez. He was known as the Spanish Clown. He worked with Barnum and Bailey and different circuses, and he worked also a lot with vaudeville. And Lucy, as a mentor, she had from MGM was Buster Keaton, one of the great silent film comedians of all time. So Buster Keaton and Pepito Perez, Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz book a hotel room, and they check in there, and they stay there for a month working on slapstick, physical comedy, and they work up 3 or 4 really funny routines that Lucy and Desi can do on stage. Meanwhile, back in Chicago, this young lady, who happens to be 14 years old, hears that Lucille Ball is coming to the Chicago Theater, and she simply must go see the show. That's my mom. When my mom sets her mind on something, she's going to do it. And I tell you this, if my mom puts her hands on her hips, then you really know she's going to do something. So little Jean Naomi Harrell, who has just spent the last 10 years of her life living in an orphanage and now has been reunited with her long-lost mother and is living in Lincoln Park, Chicago, gets on a bus, rides all the way down Lincoln Avenue, makes her way all the way down to State Street to the Chicago Theater, and she buys herself a ticket to see Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz at the Chicago Theater performing live on June 2nd, 1950. Now, I asked my mom about this show that she went to go see many different times, and it would have been nice if I would have videotaped this. I think now that would be a really cool thing to do, but I didn't. So I will just tell you exactly what it was like. My mom went there. She said it was a gorgeous theater. It was the most beautiful theater that she'd ever been in before. The seats were all like she said they were like a velvet, like a red velvet on the seats, and the ceilings were all painted gold, and there were chandeliers, and when you walk inside, the carpeting was like 2 inches thick. And I'm going to put some photos in here so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. A little history on the Chicago Theater, just so you know. It was built in 1921, and as hard as this may be to believe, the Chicago Theater is the very first grand movie palace ever built in America. A lot of people don't know that the movie industry didn't start in Hollywood. It actually started in Chicago and then moved out to California because the weather was just a little bit too rough in Chicago. It's funny how that works. That's the only reason that we're actually doing this vlog inside today. Now, when I would talk with my mom about this show, she had very fond memories of it. She said Desi Arnaz was so handsome, and he wore this beautiful suit. I'm sure it was quite expensive. And she said Lucy came out, and she was dressed all in this beautiful emerald green satin dress that was actually quite provocative. And I'm sure that looked quite dazzling up against her red hair. And she played a character in their little skit called Sally Sweet, which she was a bit of a tart. And then Desi would play a character called Cuban Pete. And we go, they call me Cuban Pete. I'm the king of the rumba beat. When I play my maracas, I go chick chicky boom, chick chicky boom, chick chicky boom. Something like that. Anyway, stop hamming it up, Bryan. That's how all of this ties together. You see, little 14-year-old Jean Naomi Harrell went down there. She had the tenacity to go and see one of her idols, Lucille Ball, and she had a great time. She enjoyed the show, and she has a memory that will last her forever. And Lucy and Desi, by the time they got back to Hollywood, they were able to show the receipts at the theater, and all the reviews were saying that people loved Desi and Lucy together, and they totally bought them as a couple. And they went on, obviously, to create I Love Lucy, arguably the most successful, funniest sitcom in the history of television. And what more can you ask for? They were able to be so incredibly innovative on that show and do so much to push the quality of television comedy forward. But wait, there's more. Now, the only reason really that we probably even know about I Love Lucy today is because of the forward thinking of Desi Arnaz, who said that they wanted to shoot the show in California and not New York. So if they shot it in California, that would mean that it would be difficult for them to have it be seen in New York. So Desi says, okay, we'll shoot it on 35 millimeter film, and that way we will overnight every single week a copy of the show so it can be played on the West Coast and the East Coast at the same time. The fact that he shot it on 35 millimeter, they said this is going to be expensive. He said, we'll pay for it. And they were like, if you want to pay for it, go ahead. He says, well, if we're paying for it, then we're going to own the film. And once he owned the film, that allowed him to do the very first thing. The I Love Lucy show was the very first show that actually went into reruns. And that's where they wound up making all of their money. A very clever, successful guy, Desi Arnaz was. I mean, when you really dig into his history, an incredible life. He's actually got a book out called A Book. You can find it on Amazon, and I read it. It's a good read. Is that the end of the story, you say? Well, except for one more thing. My mom had always told me that before she left the Chicago theater on June the 2nd, 1950, she went to the souvenir counter that they have down there. And she wanted to get some kind of souvenir of her visit to the Chicago theater. And they just happened to have a line of souvenirs about I Love Lucy. Or I should say, it doesn't even say I Love Lucy because they hadn't even really done that yet. So this is actually just pre-I Love Lucy. And once I went into my parents' little apartment and started going through their stuff, I found this, and it's pretty cool. So this is how I found this in my mom's box of souvenirs. And we're going to unwrap it right now. I know what's in here. I can feel it. And I have not seen this since I was a very little kid. And it's probably been a good 45 years. I've heard about this. It is legend in my family. And you are going to see what a little 14-year-old girl did on June 2nd, 1950, when she went down to the Chicago theater. And there you go. My mom bought a souvenir ashtray of Lucille Ball. And you can say it's Lucy's little caricature there saying hi right up there. It's got her autograph, Love Lucy. And down here it says Desilu States Inc. I don't know what that's about, but that must have been how they copyrighted their company name. It's got some nice little gold trim around here. And never used, never out of this plastic, I'm sure, so I'm not going to take it out right now, but put it right there on the old velvet, and you can see it right there. Been wrapped up since 1950. The old I Love Lucy Desilu production ashtray. A souvenir of one young girl's trip to see her idol in 1950. Well, there you go. I'm Brian, and thank you so much for joining us on this particular vlog. It's a special one. It was nice to kind of document this because I had heard about this for so many years from my mom, and it was very important to her. And I hope you liked it. If you did, I hope that maybe you'll consider subscribing to the channel. Hit the subscription button, click the bell so you get the notification, and tell your friends, share it on social media. And if you like what we do, we certainly appreciate anybody who subscribes to our Patreon account, like our good friend Alexandra, who is literally the very first patron that we have on There You Go. So thank you, Alex. I appreciate it so much. You've always been a big, big supporter of a lot of my work, and it means a lot to me. So until we meet again, this is Brian with the I Love Lucy ashtray, a very rare find. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Something old, something new, something for me, something for you. It's a big, big world. Let's check it out.
They call me Cuban beat. I'm the king of the rumba beat. Play my maracas, I go chick chicky boom, chick chicky boom, chick chicky boom, bam bam ba-dum.